All right, so like I said earlier, we are on the last week of our series called Moving On, and this series is about forgiveness, and it's so important because I think forgiveness is one of these things that we all kind of struggle with a little bit, right? Forgiveness. It's one of these things that takes some time, and what's the hardest part about forgiveness? The waiting, right? The waiting time. And it's kind of like when you're going on a long road trip. You know that the destination that you're going to get to is so fun, is so awesome, is so exciting. And you get on the road and you keep going and you're going and going. But the waiting to get there, it's the worst. And it leaves you sometimes saying, are we there yet? So I want everybody to stand up real quick. Everybody stand up real quick. We're going to see who has gone on the longest road trip. That means in the car for the longest trip. All right, so if you've been on a trip longer than an hour, stay standing. So if you've been on a trip, if you've not gone longer than an hour, sit down. Okay, if you've gone to the beach, you've gone an hour, okay? That's like, okay, let's go here. 3 hours. If you've not been in a car for longer than 3 hours, sit down. Okay, 4 hours. 5, 6, 10. That's a big jump. 12, 14. Okay, some of you guys, 14-hour road trips. All right, 20. In the car. 20 hours in the car. Anybody? I mean, you can stop, like to eat and whatnot, but like the road trip, or the time on the road. Yes, on the road. It doesn't, okay, we're subtracting the time in the hotel that you slept. Okay, all right. 23, 24. I've drove for 24 hours straight. It's hard. Yes. I mean, like stop, get gas, splash water on my face, get right back on the road. It's dangerous. Yeah. Okay. 30 hours. 35. Okay. You guys are ridiculous. Okay. All right. It's over. Okay. Over. I don't know who wins. You don't get any prize because you've been on a road too long and you guys need to, yeah. All right, so I was gonna talk about my time when I thought it was super long. We went 24 hours straight from Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, drove 24 hours straight, nonstop. I mean, I stopped to get gas and that's it. All the way back to Tennessee. It took us 24 hours. And along the way, we're like listening to music, and at one point I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm about to fall asleep, so I roll the windows down, and then it wakes Becca up, who's in the passenger seat asleep, and you know, you guys have been on road trips. Most of you guys have not drove on these road trips, so it's a hard thing. But do you guys remember some of the fun things? Like you see these different monuments, or you see these different cities, or you see all this fun. And it's funny sometimes how we're so willing to wait on something when we think it's worth it, right? But no matter what you're waiting on, the waiting part isn't usually that much fun. Sitting in the car isn't usually that much fun. And I think forgiveness is the same way. Forgiveness is the same way. When forgiveness doesn't happen immediately, whether it's on our end or their end, it can be difficult for us to be patient through the process. When we talk about this idea of forgiveness, we're talking about letting go of those negative feelings we have towards someone who's hurt us or harmed us or disappointed us. And regardless of whether they actually deserve or want our forgiveness, we have to go through the process. Because forgiveness takes more than just a moment. Forgiveness takes more than just a moment, and it often requires us to wait. And things don't always just get better right away. They just don't simply like snap your fingers and things get better once you get forgiveness. More often than not, forgiveness takes longer than we'd like for it to do. And maybe you've been hurt by someone in the past, like a parent or a friend or a sibling or a teammate. And maybe that person even came to you, apologized, and they asked for your forgiveness. And maybe you accepted that apology and you said to them that you were ready to forgive them and told them you're ready to move on. That all sounds great, doesn't it? But any of us who have been in any kind of position before know that it's not always that simple. It's not always that easy to just say, I forgive you, and be able to move on, right? Maybe your feelings don't change and you still feel the hurt or the pain or the sadness over what happened. And forgiveness just hasn't made that go away. And so you might still be angry at the person for hurting you. Or maybe the other person doesn't change. Maybe you forgave someone and they continue to act the same way towards you. And so you're like, why did I forgive you if you're just going to continue to hurt me and continue to bring up the pain? You're hopeful that they never do it again, but then they did. And they hurt you. And so now it seems like forgiveness just didn't change anything. And maybe the situation doesn't change at all. Maybe you forgave someone, but that doesn't change the fact that what's done is done. They hurt you, and now those feelings come up every time you see them, or every time you think about a certain thing. Those feelings of what they did to you just keeps coming back. And forgiveness doesn't change the way that things are or make things better between you and the person that you forgave any better. Or maybe the situation's reversed. Maybe you're the one that had to ask for forgiveness. Maybe you're the one that hurt somebody and you had to go to somebody and ask for them to forgive you. And even though you received that forgiveness, you still feel bad and things still don't change. And the relationship, the circumstances, the rules, the boundaries, the feelings, they just can't go back to the way they were. And that all probably leaves us asking this question: why should we forgive someone or even ourselves if things don't change? It doesn't even matter if it doesn't work the way we want it to. Is forgiveness even possible, or is it even necessary, or is it even worth the wait? And the good news is that there's been people who've struggled with this for a very long time. In fact, a very, very long time. And I think that's because it's such an important part of our lives. We all have to deal with the forgiveness thing. It's so important that people were asking Jesus thousands of years ago about this thing. And during that time, Jesus was with his disciples, his 12 disciples, his closest friends, his followers, and he was teaching them how to really live out their relationship with Jesus, how it should affect their lives. And so Jesus, whenever he's teaching them all these things, he reflected on his relationship with them. And one of the days, one of his disciples asked him a question. And so Peter, it says this in Matthew chapter 18, it says, "Then Peter came to him and asked, 'Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times?'" Stop right here. 7 times seems like a lot of times to forgive someone, right? Okay, this is candy right here. 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Seems like a lot, right? If you ate 7 pieces of candy, you'd start to get, bad teeth. You'd feel it on your teeth, all that stuff. Well, when Jesus was living, typically, people would actually just forgive people 3 times. 3 strikes and you're out. So I'm going to forgive you 3 times, and that's all I'm going to offer you. So they'd offer 1, 2, after this time, no more relationship. And so Peter said to Jesus that he thought they should forgive someone 7 times. So he's basically saying to Jesus, okay, we're going to live out what you're showing us, and we're going to go above and beyond. 3 times is the normal. Let's go generous. And again, 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Forgiving someone 7 times, it sounds a lot. And he thought, this is really going to impress Jesus. But knowing Jesus changes everything. Knowing Jesus in your life changes everything. It changes the way you work in your relationships. It changes how many times you offer forgiveness to people. And this is what it talks about in Matthew 18:22. The very next verse, it says, no, not 7 times, Jesus replied, but 70 times 7. 70 times 7. Yes, 490 times. Jesus gave his disciples such a big number that he knew that they should know that it meant that he had to forgive over and over and over again. And the same applies to us. Jesus asked us to forgive people 70 times 7 times. That's 490 times. This is 135. This is another 135. So 270. Yes, good quick math. There we go. And this is 130 times. Yes, 400. Ooh, I missed the box. I mean, just think. That's 400 times. The box is like full. And then 90 more times. This is how forgiveness works. This is how Jesus is telling us that forgiveness works. We're supposed to forgive as many times as it takes for it to stick. Right? Because forgiveness takes more than just a moment. We have to keep forgiving until the forgiveness actually changes something inside of us. And I don't think Jesus was giving us some magic number that 490 times was the perfect number, that after that 490th time that we would change forever, or we'd be able to move on, or that things would just be better. No. Jesus was saying that instead, he's trying to tell us that he's trying to help us to understand that forgiveness takes more than just one moment, or 2 moments, or 3 moments. It takes a little bit of time, and we have to forgive and keep moving forward until our hearts change for the person who's caused that pain. That means forgiving until we can choose not to let the anger towards that person control us. Until we can choose to speak kind words about them when we're around them and when we're not around them. Until we can choose to not spill the tea on our friends and tell them about what they did to us. Until we can choose to not get back at them for what they did. Until we can choose to move on, and even if they never apologize to us. Forgiveness, the way that Jesus explains it to us, means that it helps us to move on, but that it always doesn't happen right away. That sometimes it's going to take a moment. That sometimes it's going to take more than just a little bit to be able to move on and to get past what we're going through. And sometimes moving on and letting go just takes a little bit of time. And that's what Jesus was trying to encourage us to remember there. That it's not going to be an instant fix. And think of it like an injury. Some of us have had, some minor injuries like scrapes and bruises, and those take what, like a week at the most to heal? Like if you scrape your knee in gym class, it takes like a week maybe to heal, right? But if you've broken a bone, you know this. You break your bone, it takes longer, right? The injury isn't just going to heal itself on its own right away. It's going to take some rest. It's going to take a cast. It's going to take some long-term treatment and possibly even some surgery to fix it. And once the arm is completely healed, it will never be the exact same that it was before you broke it, right? It will never be exactly the same as before you had the injury. There might be scars or even permanent pins and screws in your arm or to fix it, whatever. But while the arm might not be exactly the same after it's healed, the person is able to use their arm again, right? After you break your arm, you're able to use it after you get through the whole treatment process. And the same is true for forgiveness. The healing can take longer when the injury is worse. And just because you forgive someone doesn't mean that you'll be exactly the same right after you're healed from it. The relationship might change. The rules might change. The way you feel towards them or towards other people might change. But healing is still possible if you practice what Jesus said. If you choose to forgive over and over and over and over and over again, healing can take place. See, forgiveness takes time. And though through forgiveness you can experience healing, that I promise you is worth the wait. And so what does it look like in our lives if we were to practice this taking time over forgiveness? Well, there's a few things I want you to try this week. Number one, it takes practice. Just like anything worthwhile, like playing an instrument, like being able to dance or being in a sport, it takes practice. Forgiveness takes practice. You don't master a skateboarding trick right overnight. It takes practice. It takes practice. You have to show up, keep getting up, and keep on trying. You have to go even whenever it's not easy. And forgiveness is an invitation to practice choosing to move on again and again and again from the pain that someone has caused you or something has caused you. And so forgiveness is there whether they deserve it or not. And practice that. Practice forgiving the little things. Practice whenever you feel like it's a big thing or it's a little thing. Keep practicing over and forgiving over and over and over again. The more you do it, the easier it will become. Number two, ask for help. Forgiveness is not easy. Forgiveness is not easy. It's not supposed to work right away. It's a healing process, and healing, again, takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen the moment that you choose to forgive. So don't give up when it doesn't feel like it's working. Pray that God will help you to remember the words of Jesus, to forgive over and over and over and over again. And then ask for help as you keep on doing that. Go to God for help. Talk to your small group leader for help, for encouragement, or find a friend that can help you to move on. And number three, it's okay if things change. It's okay if the relationship that you're in, that you had to ask for forgiveness for, or it's okay if the person that you hurt or the person hurts you, if it's not the same. It's okay if things change. It's okay because everything is going to be broken. Everything has to get put back together. And sometimes things shouldn't go back to the way that they were. But you might forgive and still decide to break up. You might forgive and still need some space from the friendship. Many times, these are good things and will make your life even better. As you think about what your life might look like, remember that it's okay if the relationship changes. And number four, it's about you. It's about you. When someone wrongs you, they're not always going to ask for forgiveness. And that definitely makes forgiving them harder to do. And there are going to be moments when it's just not easy for forgiveness. And it's not about them. It's about you. Forgiveness will help make your life better in the long run. Forgiveness will help your life be better in the long run. It will help you to heal from the hurt that you've experienced. It will help you to move on and move forward from what you've experienced. So whether the other person changes or not, choose to forgive for yourself. Here's something I want you to know, and it's so important. Forgiveness doesn't mean that those who hurt you shouldn't experience some sort of consequences for what they've done, especially if you've been abused or you've been hurt in some kind of way that's not appropriate. What happened to you is not okay, and it's not your fault. And the best step to take that step forward is to tell someone about it. And so if you've been hurt in a place that's too far or in a way that's too far, please tell someone about it so we can get you the help that can help you out. And your adult leaders are a great place to talk to them. Talk to them after a group so they can help get you the right support. See, we've spent the last 3 weeks talking about forgiveness. And we spent 3 weeks on it because I think it's so important. Because we're going to be in relationships, we're going to be in with people, and we're going to need to know that this whole forgiveness thing is a part of our everyday lives from now on. We'll all find ourselves needing to forgive someone else. We'll all be in situations where we need to forgive ourselves. And we'll all be in an opportunity where it's just not going to be easy to forgive someone. But we have to do it. Because remember, when you don't forgive, it hurts you. And everyone needs forgiveness. And forgiveness takes time. Even if it requires a lot of time, I promise that it will be worth every second as it changes you and helps you to move on. And so as you guys head into small group, I want you to think about this one question. What's one thing you want to remember about forgiveness? Let's pray. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for your son who taught us about what forgiveness looks like. What forgiveness looks like in our lives. What it would look like if we lived it out in every part of what we're doing. God, we pray that we can continue to forgive even whenever it's hard or we see no results. God, that you call us to continue to offer forgiveness over and over and over again. Because you initiated forgiveness by forgiving us. God, we thank you for your son.